Well, and we come to the road to Magna Carta. Um, you know, Magna Carta is at some level a conservative document because it takes a long stride toward restoring what people believed was right about the past. And again, old law is a good law. And it's believed, of course, that the kings who followed Henry I, the chaos that followed Henry I, led to the introduction of things that should not have been introduced, new ideas that were no good. So, in any instance, the death of Henry I, 1135, after a 35-year reign, probably died of a heart attack. He lived to be fairly old for that time period. And I can say that he was unloved by his people and probably unlovable. He seems to have been a cruel man. Now, he was not vicious in the way that his brother and father had been. And I think he was respected. Maybe it's better to be respected than it is to be loved. I don't know. But in any instance, he was certainly significant. And he certainly gave England 35 years of basically peace and good order. His death was a loss to the kingdom. I don't think there's any question about that. His son had died in a boating accident. So there's no law against a woman succeeding to the kingship, or in this case, the queenship. And he did want his daughter, Matilda, to succeed him. But Matilda had been married twice, and both times to people whom the English considered to be enemies of the ruling family and actually of England. And so when Henry dies, Stephen of Blois, which is over in France, simply tried a coup and seized the throne and seized the crown and all that stuff. But Matilda, who for good reasons thought that she should be the head of England, starts a civil war, and on it rolled for nearly 20 years. Matilda was recognized in the most populated areas of England. Stephen was recognized in the rest of England. People were captured. At one point, Matilda had to get out of a castle, supposedly dressed in white, probably dressed in white, actually, to sneak across a frozen river with snow on the ground. And so, it was just a mess. And it went on and on and on and on. And law and order broke down completely. Matilda's son, Henry, however, Matilda eventually strikes a deal with Stephen that her son will come to the throne and Stephen's son will not be harmed. And that's what happened. Henry II, certainly one of the greatest of English kings, faced a kingdom that had been ruined by civil war, and he instituted broad reforms. Above all, he took counsel often and at length. He talked to his people, he talked to his leaders, and he did it often. He himself was a bit of an egomaniac, but nevertheless, he took counsel. He listened to people. He greatly broadened the jury system, and it becomes almost recognizably the jury system we have today. He set up court systems that were clear forerunners of today's system. He's really, more than anybody else, the founder of Anglo-American law. He created a large and effective bureaucracy, not dependent upon local leaders. So you didn't have to know, like Joe of Yorkshire to get things done. You already had people in Yorkshire who were loyal to you. He created, he more than restored England's financial health, and he's going to be one of the few kings who can really say that. If you're a king, you spend money until you're restrained. But Henry saw the whole package and is going to do that. And he brought the church under control about as much as possible. there's quite a few stories about Henry and the church and Thomas Becket and people you've never heard of. But having said that, he got about as much. He got the church, which had become a force against law and order, particularly during the Civil War. He brought the church as much as he could be under control and kind of back into England. So it worked fairly well. He was succeeded by Richard the Lionhearted, and this probably is what Richard the Lionhearted looks like. This, of course, is his tomb. It was the effigy, the figure on top, was made soon after Richard's death, so this is probably what he looked like. Richard the Lionhearted possessed all of his father's skills, but they were expressed in an almost tidal wave of evil. Perhaps he was a sociopath, we don't know. He's just too far away, and you can't do psychology and analysis long distance. It's a bad idea. Maybe he was just a bad man. I don't know. I think the modern historians, and actually some back in the 1800s, think of him pretty much as a bad man, a bad king, a bad husband, bad almost everything. Even by the loose standards of those days, he was a bad husband. He did strange things, but he really bankrupted England. He loved warfare, and he was a king for about 10 years. I doubt that he spent an entire year, if you put it all together, in England. He was always, he loved battle. And in fact, he's going to die in battle. He's going to take an arrow in the shoulder. He's going to get blood poisoning and die. Who knows? But that was probably a good thing for England, except for the fact that he had so thoroughly wrecked England that his successor, John, and this is the best shot I could get of John's effigy, and which was actually done a few years after John died. So it's probably what he looked like, hard to say. But John was ruthless. He was clever, but he didn't have the strength of personality that his father, Henry II, and Richard had, although they certainly used their strength of personality for different reasons. John's position bordered on the hopeless. His kingdom was broke. He himself was known for a lack of loyalty. He was not a warrior. He was a sufficient military commander, but not a great military commander. And this is an age when people expect kings to be warriors, at least until they get older. Worst of all, he inherited all the complaints that people had against Henry II for being too good a king, and Richard II for being too bad a king. And then there's one more thing. He murdered a guy by the name of Arthur Brittany. He probably murdered him. Word gets around. And so he was not respected. So in any instance, England was faced only with more taxes. John, he was not without goals, his family had a lot of land in France, and he was going to try to preserve it, and that meant military affairs, and that meant more taxes. He was in constant fights with the church. At one point, he turned England over to the Pope to get the Pope off his back. It wasn't chaos. John was way too good a king to call this chaos, but his situation was just awful. And he didn't have the skills. Henry II inherited a worse situation and did much, of course, becomes one of the great kings of England. John was capable, smart, maybe a little bit too clever, touch of Richard's evil, not a lot. But in any instance, it's hard to see anything good that could have come out of Richard's reign, unless he was a Henry II, which he wasn't. So in any instance, it certainly is a period of time of fantastic change in England. Henry II gives us much of what we have today in terms of court systems, in terms of bureaucracy, in terms of thinking about, Henry II's modern. That he was succeeded by Richard, it was just a disaster. If he'd been succeeded by John, which was his original plan, I think things would have gone a whole lot better. But that's not what happened, and history is about what happened, not about what didn't happen. So, excuse me, everybody stay healthy out there. Don't end up coughing like this. You take care, and I'll talk to you later. Okay, bye-bye.